Your green dragon stat block is lying to you. You see the hit points, the bite attack, the poison breath, and you think, okay, it's a big flying lizard. That's pretty much what dragons are. But that's exactly how you're wasting its potential. A green dragon's deadliest weapon isn't its poison, it's the wicked, the brilliant mind behind those eyes. Today, we are forgetting about brute force. We're going to show you how to turn your green dragon into a terrifying mastermind whose influence will haunt your players long before they ever see a green scale. So this lair that we're doing today for the green dragon, and all levels of green dragon from wormling to ancient, is a request. In the comments of one of the previous really quick map videos, it was asked how you would create a lair for a green dragon in particular. And I haven't really talked about dragons before, but the question was how you would make a lair for it and adapt it to the different stat blocks within a green dragon's lineage, so that you could make something that's for, a wormling or for an ancient dragon, and think about how the different abilities, especially as they grow over time, can be adapted for the party. And that means not just talking about how to create the lair, which we will do later, but also thinking about what the strength of the stat block is. And we've talked about a lot of monsters at this point, particularly how you can use the lair and the environment and their knowledge of themselves and the world to make them a greater threat to the party, make them self-aware in the same way that the players are. They're always thinking about how to make themselves stronger. And something like a green dragon is so much more of a threat than something like a goblin is, because it can self-improve. It is self-aware. It has the intelligence, the wisdom, and the charisma in order to make itself better than the players can. So what we're going to do first is we're going to talk about how green dragons are strong, how they can use the lore and their abilities to greatest effect out of combat, and then bring it in so that the fight can be so much more engaging and entertaining in an environment that actively works with their strengths and weakens the party. Hello adventurers, and welcome back to the Red Cause. My name is Ryan, and today we are going to be discussing creating a lair for a green dragon. Dragons are the namesake of our game. They're supposed to be the ultimate monster, but let's be honest, how often do they just end up as a big scaly bag of hit points at the end of a dungeon crawl? We build up this epic fight. The party kicks in the door, rolls initiative, and it's just a slug fest. The dragon breathes, it bites, it claws, and eventually it falls over. The party gets a pile of gold and a story that sounds an awful lot like the last dragon they fought. That's a huge missed opportunity. And I'm sure that many of you are aware of the fact that dragons are supposed to be the BBEG, the big, bad, evil guy. And that means that they need to be a mastermind. They need to be talked about. They need to be teased long before they make an appearance in the campaign. And the green dragon in particular, I think, is to that effect. It needs to be a mastermind that uses its abilities out of combat before it ever even allows the party to lay eyes on them. So what we're going to do is I'm going to open up my little notebook. I'm going to take out my pen and create a lair for the dragon that not only uses its lore and its abilities, but becomes aware of what its modus operandi is, its MO. So let's take a look, shall we? Before we even touch on lair actions or combat, we have to get inside the monster's head. The monster manual gives us the keywords: cunning, deceptive, manipulative, but what does that actually look like at your table? Well, it means that the green dragon is the ultimate gaslighter. It is a creature that loves the psychological destruction of its enemies, even more than victory itself. A red dragon wants to burn you and take your stuff. A black dragon wants to dissolve you in acid just for the fun of it. A green dragon wants to convince you that your best friend is about to betray you and watch you fall into despair, and then casually take your things in a way that makes you thank it for that. Its currency is corruption. Its goal is control. A green dragon doesn't just want to rule the forest, it wants to own every living thing in it, from the tiniest squirrel to the most powerful fae. It doesn't just use charm magic. It uses perfectly crafted lies, half-truths, and poisoned words to find the cracks in a person's soul and pry them wide open. Think of your green dragon less as a king and more as a master puppeteer, and that will bring you so much closer. The lair that we're going to create today deliberately keeps that in mind. It doesn't want to be a target on a throne in a crown. It wants to be the power behind the throne, something that uses the control of a king without being a target, and we are going to be using that today. A green dragon's lair is also not just a home, it's the ultimate expression of its power and the most complex weapon that it has. It doesn't just find a cave in a forest, it finds a forest and makes a lair. The very land can twist to serve the green dragon's will, becoming a living, breathing death trap. For your players, crossing into a green dragon's territory should feel like stepping into another dimension, one that actively hates them. And this is something that I bring up fairly regularly when we do these videos, is that a lot of these monsters, like green dragons, especially as you get into adult and ancient dragons, have lived for decades, if not centuries, with an intelligence score that is comparable, if not greater than the players. They should know what they're doing. They should have thought things through. They should know more than your players do, not just about the world, but about how magic and politics and society works so that it can use that to its advantage. So forget simple caves. Green dragons love ancient forests, misty swamps, towering overgrown ruins. Their lairs are often hidden by illusions, tucked behind roaring waterfalls or even submerged in murky lakes. The journey to the lair is the first layer of defense. The forest itself becomes a maze of unnatural thorny vines that block sightlines and tear at clothes, forcing checks to move forwards. And what we're going to be making today is what I'm going to call the Hatewood. And it's the first layer of defense after the forest itself. Because as they move through the forest, they're going to find that it is hostile towards them. Thorns erupt from the ground, wild animals attack them, there's poison in the water, there are spiders in the trees, and all of these things are what you would expect from a hostile forest, and not necessarily something that you would expect from a dragon. And as they head into the center, they find an Eyrie, fey city, coiled around a great tree that they'll call the Hatewood. Light lanterns hang from its branches. An eerie light and mist fills the roads and the corridors of the tree. There are shadows moving through the city, so that the players, as they look upon it, become aware that this is a city of the Fae, a place of deception and illusion, something that they cannot trust. As they go through and they step through the ruins of the town, perhaps they will begin to find indications that not everything is as they seem. They hear the crack of a bone underfoot but can't see it. They smell rot in the air but can't find any trace of it on the ground. They look around to hear the noise of something following them, but there's nothing there. The shadows, the light, the mist curls around them because all of it is under a massive illusion. Instead of the Heartwood at the center of the forest, it is the Hatewood. Layered beneath a hallucinatory terrain, the players are not aware of what they're walking into until they're right where the dragon wants them. That is the first step. The first veil is to bring them into a situation that they don't fully understand by manipulating their expectations. If you lay the clues that the dragon is in fact, hostile, unseelie, fey, then they won't know what's going to hit them until they're right on top of it. And then the dragon can make its masterstroke. And remember that as well, while the dragon could probably kill them if it wanted to, it sees so much more benefit in keeping them alive. A dragon, a green dragon in particular, is like a cat. It would rather not kill an enemy if it can make that enemy know deep down in its withering soul that it has been beaten permanently. So now they're within the environment. It's a hostile environment that they weren't expecting. They haven't been able to plan for it. They haven't been able to see through it. But once the illusion flickers and fades, they find themselves at the base of the Hatewood. The city around is in ruins, but the dragon possibly does still have some allies within the wood. The Heartwood had the power to control the forest. The Hatewood still has that power, and it obeys the dragon's commands. Again, using decades, if not centuries, of the ability to gather information and knowledge has allowed the dragon to find aspects of the world, magic, politics, society, that will augment its own power. It doesn't want to just rely on a stat block if it can rely on an artifact or a magic item as well, if it can rely on an environment that obeys its commands. Why has it chosen its lair? Can the lair do most of the fighting? So let's paint a picture. The lair isn't a cave, it is a colossal, corrupted tree palace. There are no stairs. The party has to climb the slippery, treacherous bark inside the giant tree, leaving them exposed. The lair has distinct regions. So first, as the illusion fades away, they enter the Putrid Garden at the base of the tree. It's choked with exotic, poisonous plants that the dragon has cultivated after the fall of the Sealy court. The air is thick with toxic pollen that could inflict a poisoned condition. The dragon's minions, corrupted beasts or shambling mounds, use the dense, weird foliage for ambushes. Once they get through that, they will be weakened, they will be poisoned, possibly exhausted, they will be on guard and unwary. So they then enter the Echoing Hall, which is also going to be using the advantages that the dragon already has. It's a vertical maze of branches where sound carries in bizarre ways. The dragon can use this to throw its voice, create auditory illusions to mislead the party, or eavesdrop on their plans from a hidden perch. Every snapped twig gives away their position and lets the dragon know what is coming. And it can start to turn the party against them. It can use the voices of the party's allies, of NPCs, of other players themselves, to split them up and make them distrust one another. It is always very fun for your players to wonder if someone at the table is about to betray them, depending on whether the party has agreed to that out of game, and have that discussion with them. But that manipulation, that deception, that awareness of how to control people who don't want to be controlled is the dragon's strength. And you can start bringing in some of its abilities, like its fearful presence. Deeper, further up the tree, is the poisoned heart, the core of the tree where the corruption is the thickest. And here the very air is a toxic soup. Pools of acid bubble on the floor. It's where the dragon keeps its hoard and the environmental hazards are at their peak. It's a kill box designed by a genius who's thought it through. It's going to be aware that one of the major draws for a party coming to kill it is the hoard itself. So it places the hoard in a very obvious location, knowing full well that they will probably make a beeline for it and try to take some of it as soon as they can. Now, if your players are smart, they will avoid the hoard until after the dragon is dead, but that doesn't really matter. You've got to think in the way the dragon wants to think. The true treasure is being able to control people, and it is aware of how powerful gold can be, especially if that gold has an unintended side effect, some kind of enchantment or poison that is laid upon it to mislead the players or weaken them later on. Lore-wise, this area of the tree is also where the Sealy controlled the forest from. So this is where that corruption is at its greatest, and it is an environment that the dragon can control to the greatest extent. It can create more poison, more acid, it can create illusions, it can even, have the magic erupt if it wants to in unstable, chaotic ways that echo the dangers of the Feywild. And if your players manage to get through that, they climb further up and they get to the Eyrie, which is the perch where the dragon ostensibly lives, but in reality is an area that it is prepared so that people who have come to find it have a large enough area to feel safe, but is an environment that it is controlled and is ready and waiting. It makes so much more sense for the dragon who controls its environment and has set up a lair to think things through and create a trap that looks like a trap so that the players will wander directly into it. Because if it looks like a trap, then that's obviously the right way to go. If it makes one after another, puts a great deal of effort into making an environment that is very visible and very clearly dangerous, they're going to make a beeline for it. That might not be where the dragon lives at all. That might just be a decoy. But it wants an area where it can look the players in the eye and they know that they have been outwitted, outmatched. And that's what the dragon wants. Its treasure is humiliation and manipulation. And we want to be able to use that. It does want to use the environment to its advantage. So you want to have it fairly open to the elements so it can fly and escape. It wants to be surrounded by that mist so it can't see very far, so it can use its voice and its frightful presence. It wants to be able to use the lair actions as well. It has lair actions, legendary actions, as well as its stat blocks. Even if you do get into combat, it's a formidable foe. And once again, it's not about proving itself on the battlefield. It is about living to fight another day. A green dragon is a strategist, and no good strategist fights alone. So we want this dragon to have, if not allies, then henchmen. And they aren't just a pack of simple brutes, they're a complex web of spies, saboteurs, and political agents who often have no idea who or what they're really working for. And a green dragon's power extends far beyond the reach of its own claws. So now we're getting into, we've designed the lair, but this part of the tutorial is talking about how we can really use the strengths of a green dragon to create an experience that uses its abilities to the fullest extent. And its abilities aren't combat abilities. They are in making a world that is hostile. I would recommend, if you're running a green dragon, that you make several of these lairs, all of which are decoys, before the party even gets to fighting it. They want to be able to have figured out its tactics when they finally have the showdown, so that they can have overcome its abilities and really have earned that victory. If they're just hacking away at it, then it's just a big lizard. But if you really want a big bad evil guy that is memorable, then you want to be able to have your players have thought through how to fight it in combat and out of combat, how to look through its tricks, how to have learned its strategies and overcome them. And that's what we're really trying to do here. This lair is just one example of it. It's going to have allies. It's going to have role play. Let's talk about how we can bring this lair into the context of a campaign in which a green dragon, no matter really what age it is, because again, its age will only impact what it knows about the world and its stat block. Those things are the only parts that are really going to be impacted by the age of the dragon. So if that's the case, then how we run a dragon isn't going to change too much regardless of its age. So let's talk about what that looks like. A green dragon might make a pact with a coven of hags, not as equals, but by convincing them that their goals just happen to line up, and it will use the hags to cast hallucinatory terrain over the tree, make more traps, use the environment, gather magical artifacts and knowledge. It might manipulate a tribe of lizard folk posing as a powerful nature spirit who will help them drive out human settlers. That provides the brute force for a young green dragon that doesn't yet have the strength to fight the party head on. Remember, it is a strategist. It thinks things through beforehand. If it has a weakness, it will use a strength to counteract that. And how can it do that? By using allies, either willing, unwilling, or unwitting. Even fey creatures aren't safe. A green dragon's corruption can twist a pixie's mischief into pure malice, or turn a satyr's charm into a weapon of deceit. And these kinds of agents can move through society without a second glance. They can spread rumors, create chaos, report back to their master. Imagine the party's relief at meeting a friendly gnome on the road, only to realize hours later that he's been leading them into ambushes the whole time, his mind subtly twisted by the dragon. And the dragon uses those pawns to try to soften the party out. Before the adventurers even reach the forest's edge, their lives are already harder. Their supplies are spoilt by a corrupt merchant. They're denied entry to the city by a blackmailed official. A trusted guide secretly under the dragon's thumb leads them accidentally into a monster-filled swamp. And you can use that not just for attack, but defense. If the party manages to wound the dragon and makes it flee, it doesn't go to lick its wounds, it retreats to its network. It calls in favors, activates sleeper agents, sends its allies to hunt the party, preventing them from taking a long rest. The assault never stops, and it comes from people they never knew were part of the game. And by the way, if you're enjoying this deep dive into making monsters more terrifying, consider hitting the subscribe button, the like button, help this video get out to the wider community. I make a video like this every week, and if you have a monster that you would like to see in an episode coming up, stick it in the comments below. Normally, these videos focus on creating the lair itself, but for a foe like this, a big bad evil guy, I did want to talk a lot about how to run it outside of combat as well, because that is where its strength is. But most of these videos talk about the actual mapping of a lair and how we can use the environment. So let's get back into it. Because now we put it all together. The personality, the lair, the pawns all serve the dragon's unseen battle plan. It's not a fight, it's a campaign of psychological warfare designed to tear apart the party's resolve, their resources, their friendships, before they even think about drawing their swords. A green dragon doesn't just wait around for heroes to show up. It is a proactive hunter. From the moment it identifies a potential threat, like your players, it starts working from the shadows. Its plans are long-term and layered. First, a misinformation campaign. The dragon uses its agents to frame the party. Imagine the heroes ride into town, famous for clearing out an orc camp, only to see wanted posters with their faces on them. The local magistrate, a pawn of the dragon, accuses them of orchestrating the attack themselves to steal a relic that was lost in the fighting. Suddenly, the party isn't fighting a dragon, they're fighting for their reputations, running from the law, watching their allies turn away. Next, it attacks their support structure. That friendly wizard who sells them potions. The dragon learns he has a gambling problem, uses its agents to put him deep in debt, and then offers to clear it. All he has to do is add a special ingredient to the party's next batch of healing potions, a subtle poison that causes weakness or paranoia at just the wrong moment. The rich noble who funds the expeditions, the dragon unearths a family secret, uses blackmail to cut off the party's funding. All at once, the party is isolated, broke, and wondering who they can possibly trust. And the dragon also loves to create a protection racket. It might secretly drive a pack of monsters toward a village, then show up in an illusory form as a guardian spirit. It drives the beasts away, and the terrified villagers start leaving it offerings. They come to depend on the dragon for protection from a threat that it created. And when the party arrives to slay the evil dragon, they're not heroes. They're monsters trying to kill the town's only protector. But the cruelest trick that you can use is to turn the party against one another. Having spied on them for weeks, it will know their strengths and their weaknesses. It will know how to drive a wedge between them. If your players like role-playing, if they're aware of how they interact with one another and what everyone's vices are, the dragon will be aware of that too. You can have them start turning against each other by planting false evidence, by creating nightmares, by making them doubt their own skills, by using their knowledge of tactics against them, by figuring out what they want and how they can be driven apart from one another. And the whole point of these schemes is to ensure that when the party does finally reach the dragon's lair, they're not heroes. They are a fractured, paranoid, resource-drained group of survivors who have been emotionally beaten down for weeks. The dragon has been fighting them and winning the whole time. The final confrontation isn't the beginning of the battle, it's the final, merciful stroke. So, there we go. There is a brief rundown of the lair, but a much more in-depth discussion of how we can create a campaign that's based around a green dragon that uses its abilities to its strength, and particularly its lore to its strength as well. Having a green dragon becoming aware of the party after they've gained a little bit of fame, and oh so slowly, over session after session, not only creating active threats for them to fight so that it can gauge their strength, but starting to turn their allies against them by gathering evidence that makes them look like villains, by turning them against one another, by learning their weaknesses and their strengths, by creating not just one lair, but a network of different decoy lairs that can draw them off track and delay them while it prepares another defense, so that finally, when they do face the dragon, they aren't just fighting for combat. They either win and kill the dragon, or they spend the rest of their lives under its thumb. We've moved past the stat block, and we've used its lore to create this master manipulator, to create a piece of world building that is engaging and dynamic and interesting. And that's what we want to do for every monster. Thank you for watching this episode of Really Quick Maps. I hope that it was useful to you. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you've run a green dragon for your own campaign, did you think that it hit as hard as it could have? What kind of tricks did you use to embrace its lore? Or did you just use it as a big flying lizard? In which case, how did you make that interesting for your players? How did you create the storytelling in an interesting way for them? Thank you to everyone for watching, and as always, thank you to my Patreon community. I couldn't do this without you guys. If you want to support me so that I can create more and better videos, because I write and record and edit everything on my own, and it is a fair amount of work, but I love doing it for the community. If you want me to be able to do it a little bit better, then please consider heading over to Patreon and subscribing, or you can become a YouTube member and get access to the videos a week early. In any case, let me know what you think, join the Discord, and I will see you next week for a new episode of the Red Quills Mapmaking channel. I'll see you then. All right, episode 2. Nope, episode, what are we up to? 10. Green Dragon Lair. Your green dragon stat block is lying.